bring in Republican Senator James Lankford. He serves on the Senate Committee on Finance as well as the Committee on Homeland Security and Government Affairs. He is, of course, Republican from Oklahoma. Senator, Canada and China are your state's biggest trading partners. Where do you stand on President Trump's fresh tariffs that kicked in at midnight?
Yeah, this is an area where we're giving the president some leeway to be able to do some negotiations and then hoping that we get a rapid solution to these negotiations so we can provide some stability. He negotiated the USMCA to be able to provide trade consistency with Canada and with Mexico. So we want to be able to see that trade consistency with Canada and Mexico. They are a great trading partner and a long-term trading partner in an area where we get energy, timber, so many other dairy products. We've had our own fights on some of these different trade issues, but we're resolving those individually. And I would hope that we can aggressively get to solutions on issues and get back to stability.
Well, as you heard from Justin Trudeau, the current, although he's leaving Prime Minister of Canada, he said, we will not back down from a fight. We know that Xi Jinping is putting in tariffs already. And I just have to ask you, because if you look at your state and you see what kind of trade you do as far as exports and imports are concerned, right. Oklahoma has pretty good trade relations with China, Canada, and Mexico. Canada is its biggest trade partner here. Of the total $18.8 billion in total imports that Oklahoma gets from other countries, $9.02 billion from Canada, $2.5 billion from China. But it works both ways. $1.86 billion of Oklahoman products go to Canada. So right. I can imagine you're hearing from some of your constituents. What are you telling them? Sit tight?
So right now we're telling them exactly that, to be able to sit tight, let this negotiation play out and get it resolved. They're all saying, I can give you a couple of days to weeks, and I want to be able to get to resolution on this. They're holding off on contracts, holding on expanding their business. That has an effect, obviously, on the economy in my state. And so we're waiting to be able to see where this goes in the days ahead.
You know, you said that you want to give the president some space to make this work. There is that belief by some people that he's actually taking the long view of all of this and that there will be short-term pain. Certainly, right. And we're seeing that already. We're about to speak to a grocer here in New York who says at the end of the week when he runs out of avocados, he's got to hike those prices, and that means he's passing on price hikes in some way, shape, or form to customers. I mean, multiply that across the nation. But the president's long game appears to be that he wants to get manufacturers back here to the United States. That is certainly something that we need to do, is it not? So right. How does Oklahoma fit into that?
So Oklahomans are going to give them the benefit of the doubt to be able to work through this because we've seen it before on this. We saw during the first Trump administration a lot of the back and forth tariff fights with China. As you recall, there were about $48 billion in American subsidies that went to American farmers and ranchers to be able to offset the penalties that they were facing from China during that time period to be able to work through it. But we've also seen the announcement of the Honda Civic now being produced in the United States, not in Mexico. We'll see other manufacturers saying, I'm going to choose to be able to be in the United States. So the president's trying to be able to do long-term growth in jobs as well as short-term results on issues like immigration or on fentanyl. If you go back just on the immigration side and what Mexico has done, they've moved 10,000 troops to their northern border. They've started clamping down on the border, as well as our folks, obviously from CBP, clamping down on our border. Mm-hmm. Last week, we had one day where we had 200 people that tried to illegally cross the border. A year ago, that was 12,000 people a day crossing. Now it's less than 200 in a day. So those tariffs have made an impact on Mexico in their enforcement of their northern border, which is important for us in our enforcement of our southern border. So there's that logistical piece, but there's also a long-term piece that's got to be worked out for our economy.
We have a trade war. Let's just call it what it is at the moment, because Mexico and the president, Claudia Sheinbaum, whom President Trump has said he likes a lot, and she has made some moves toward appeasing what the president has demanded he'd like to see. She said Sunday she's going to hold a big rally in one of the big town squares in Mexico City and announce retaliatory or reciprocal tariffs. How long do you think the people of your state and the people of America will remain patient, especially when they may have checked in on their 401ks at the worst points of the session today and really gulped and got worried, especially people who are close to retirement?
Yeah. Folks would get nervous on this. I do think the people of Oklahoma are going to give them some space on this. But obviously, President Trump has spoken out about retaliatory tariffs. So it shouldn't be any surprise for Canada and Mexico to also speak about retaliatory tariffs as well, because the USMCA gave a very clear boundary for this zone and for North America and how we're going to operate. And a lot of companies have based their capital decisions long term based on having free trade from the first Trump administration negotiating that free trade between Canada and Mexico and the United States. So this is an important issue to be able to resolve as quickly as possible, because while the president's passionate about retaliatory tariffs, other countries are as well.
Before we go, really quickly, we are 10 days away from a government shutdown. It's like a bad nightmare once again, rearing its ugly head. Even your compatriot, Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana, Republican, has said he's not optimistic. He doesn't think there will be a budget. Are we headed once again to, I guess, a short-term funding bill? And what can the American public think? You guys, the Republicans, control the presidency, you control the Senate and the House, and we can't get a budget?
Yeah. So I would say a couple of things. One is a budget piece that is appropriation bills, what they're actually called technically, is always bipartisan because it has to go through the Senate with 60 votes.
Yep.
So though Republicans are in charge, we actually develop the timing and what the initial bill is. Every one of these appropriation bills has to pass with 60 votes, has to be bipartisan to be able to move. It's just the nature of it in the Senate. This is left over from last year, and it was my great frustration in December. Chuck Schumer never brought up a single appropriation bill in the Senate last year through the entire year. Not one of them ever came to the floor, though they all came out of committee with bipartisan support. They would never come for a vote. We're now left over with that, trying to be able to resolve this year. And obviously, there's some pretty strong disagreements between Democrats and the White House of some of their policy decisions. And so they're dragging their feet to be able to move negotiations. We should get this resolved. Hopefully, we'll have a continuing resolution to be able to keep the government open. Love to be able to see appropriations done. You may know I have a bill that I've had. It's been a bipartisan bill for a year called Preventing Government Shutdowns. Yes. I don't think we should ever have one of those because if we look terrible in the world stage, it actually spends and wastes more money than it does anything else. We should never have a government shutdown. We should have the fight about budget. That needs to be there. But we should hold the American people harmless as Congress actually fights out the issues we need to resolve.
Senator Lankford, thank you very much for coming on the show. We appreciate it.